Hello, I'd like to welcome to the show today Alex Villacis, a graphic designer, surface, a service designer, a creative thinker, and traveler. Alex is the host of Do, Do I Need School to Be? And I should know this one because I was a guest on her show. We were talking about Do I Need the Education? Alex and I met through the social media app called Clubhouse. And I consider Alex part of my tribe. Alex likes to share lots of information with everybody. It helps us. And I think we all learn from each other. But I'd like to welcome to the show, Alex. So, how are you today, Alex?
Hi, Randall. I am very happy to be here with you today and share my story regarding traveling. It has been not only part of my life, but part of my family's history and how my family has been built since before I was born. So it's a very special topic to me. And I'm so happy to be now in your podcast because you're in my podcast and your episode is going to be coming up soon. So, yeah, it's really fun to be in this little podcasting tribe.
Now, Alex, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself so we can just get a feel who you are?
Of course. Well, I am Alex. I am a service designer and graphic designer living in Rotterdam, in the Netherlands, where I moved here 3 years ago because I am one of those people that decided to get their BA, their bachelor's degree, later in life. I was in a job that I really liked, but there was no way for me to go, even though I'm still working with them, but on my own terms. And I like that job because it allowed me to travel a lot. I was making very good money. I had days off and everything. It was great, but it wasn't where I wanted to be. So I took the plunge, and after I became a German citizen, which came with so many freedoms and so many privileges, I moved to the Netherlands and I decided to do my bachelor's degree in the Willem de Kooning Academy. So I am very passionate about education and learning and designing. And to a lot of people, that might sound a little bit extreme, leaving the country suddenly. It did for my coworkers. But for me, it's something that I've been doing already. I moved before I lived in Germany for 10 years. I lived in Mexico for 3. Before that, I was born in Ecuador. My mom is from Honduras. Generations before, it was always migration and traveling was a huge part of our lives. So it felt only natural to me. And I am very curious about what's going to happen next. And even other international movies in my future, I don't discard that. It could happen anytime.
Well, on that, I find it interesting that you shared that you are, I wouldn't say nomadic, but you have traveled and you do it one because you want to improve yourself, but you want to get to the place where you feel comfortable. So, like you said, traveling to Rotterdam, living in the Netherlands to get your BA, to and you want to live on your own terms. And I think that's very impressive with the fact that a lot of us get caught up in that corporate world and we follow, what we're supposed to do, and I'd say our creative thoughts are sort of squashed a bit and we don't have that freedom. So you have to find that. And the fact that you just said, okay, I'm going to move forward. And also you say you don't know if this is your last stop. So you might be traveling a little bit more. You never know. I've always had the dream of traveling. I started late in life because I was one of those fools that caught up in that idea of climb that corporate ladder, and I got to almost the top rung, and I fell off, and I had to start again, and I start again late in life, and it was like, okay, I the job I have now I do because it pays the bills, but my passion is creative. So like yourself, I like doing the podcast, I like writing, and I'm traveling. So I decided to create this travel podcast so we can find out why people travel and to keep the dream of travel alive. Now, what was your first memory of traveling, either domestically or internationally?
That's a good question. The first memory of traveling, like I mentioned before, my mom is from Honduras and my dad is from Ecuador. They met when my dad was, I think, 19, and he moved to Honduras to go to college there. My dad has an engineering degree in agronomy, and he met my mom, and those two crazy young people decided that they were in love, and they got pregnant with my sister. My older sister got married, and my mom moved to Ecuador to be with my dad. A few less than a year later, I was in the world as well. And yeah, my sister and I are really close to each other. We're a year, 3 months apart. And I always tell my parents, you irresponsible teenagers. um, but yeah, it turned out well. 30 years in, they're still the most ridiculously in love people I've ever met. And I think my first memory of traveling would be going with my mom to Honduras. I think I was maybe like 2 or 3 years old. And yeah, my mom decided to venture on an international flight in the early 90s with a 4 year old and a 3 year old, which I personally think is insane. And yeah, since then, those were our classic trips, going to Honduras or going to the beach or stuff like that. It was always different. I remember really funny one time. I think I was 6 and my sister was 7, and we were stuck in an airport in Panama, I think, and it was because our flight from Ecuador had left late. And my mom always tells this story how she got so angry because the airport staff said, "Okay, but there's a flight tomorrow morning. You can sleep in the airport." And my mom just went ballistic on them, saying like, how am I supposed to sleep in the airport with a 6 year old and a 7 year old? Are you guys insane? And because we were not the only people stuck there, my mom suddenly started a little riot in the airport, which made the airline put us all on a bus and send us to a very nice hotel and feed us dinner, and then the next day take us back to the airport for our flight. So a lot of things happen. And since, yeah, traveling to Honduras and then traveling to any time that we could, even if it was just a small trip, my parents wanted to show us that there were different things, that there were different things to our lives.
That must have been like an interesting. Like I know sometimes you have to stand up and speak for yourself because your mom traveling with two young children and told to sleep in an airport. I've heard of horror stories where people have landed into late into a destination. The airport is actually closed. Like everything in the airport's closed. Food services. The only thing walking about maybe is some security. There's no buses leaving the airport, and the people were quite a distance from the airport. And the only option they had to do was sleep in the airport, which was very uncomfortable. One, but the second thing was when they woke up early in the morning around say 5:30 a.m. as the sun was coming up, they found there was a lot of I would say people that they didn't want to associate with. They looked like they were, hovering around them like gonna. Anyways, they were very, very, very nervous. Fortunate enough that when these people got a little close, the security came by, chased them away, and soon after they were able to get a bus to get to their destination. So that was okay. But they did tell me about that horror story about having to sleep in the airport. And that was before I was a travel advisor. So I didn't book them on that trip. So I would have been there to help them. But again, we all learn as we travel. And sometimes, as you said, we have to stand up like your mom did and say, look, this is not acceptable, not with two young children. And as was because your mom spoke up, everybody was able to benefit when, you know, get to the hotel, get fed, and then get brought back to the airport the next day.
Yeah, and those horror stories are true. To give you an example of something that happened to me that wasn't so great, I was my cousin. I was already living in Europe. I was living in Germany by then, and one of my cousins from Ecuador came to visit me, and we decided that we wanted to go to Rome. We wanted to go to Italy. So we did we fly? I don't remember how we got there, but on the way back, we went to Rome, we went to Florence. It was a great trip. And on the way back, we our train got canceled in Florence. So we had to rebook the train. And we were supposed to take the train to Paris because we were going to meet in Paris with my older sister and we have family there. So traveling to Paris is something we do often. I do it at least once a year. Before COVID, of course, I had to skip it because of COVID. And on that trip, we were told, so we booked an overnight train because it's a very long train that we booked an overnight train. And we said, okay, we want a place in a card that's only women because we would feel safer. Turns out in the travel agency, they booked us in a car in a section of the train that was only men. So in the only men section of the train. And yeah, it was pretty scary because even though we are guarded, like we're women from Latin America, we're guarded around people that we don't know. It's just in our DNA. It's just how we are raised, the reality that we live. And everything was fine. It was a card of six. It was four men and us. And yeah, the guys didn't speak. They only spoke French. My French was not great back then. My cousins either. So they were like organizing things. Something like, you want to top or bottom? And we were like, what do you mean top or bottom? Like, explain yourself, sir. And we saw another traveler and he was like, oh, they're asking you if you want to be on the top bunk or in the bottom bunk. And so they pulled suddenly one of them got really frustrated. He pulled us out of the cart and got very scared. And he just started pulling beds out of the cart somehow, like moving the seats. So suddenly we had beds and put us back into the cart and said, okay, you're sleeping in the bottom. And it was just really scary because you don't know what's happening. You don't speak the language. You don't know these people. You don't. And to tell you this, I didn't sleep the entire night. The entire train ride, I was also reading The House of the Spirits by Isabel Allende. So I was nosy deep into that book. So I had something to do. But I slept with that for like 20 minutes. Then my cousin would wake up, then she would stay awake for 2 hours, and I would sleep 2 hours. Just that's being in that situation. Like now, I realized it was very dangerous, but it was just because we got booked in the wrong train. I don't think I would have been that scared in a cart full of women. But yeah, it's just one of those situations that taught me, okay, in the future, when I go to a travel agency to book a train, I will make sure that they're booking me in the right place. I will not ask for a person who speaks Italian. I will stand up for myself and say, hey, I need somebody who I'm sure understands me and I can understand them. Because if I had been in the situation that my mom was with two little kids, I'm not sure, like I would have been a lot more scared than I was.
Well, that sort of ties into the question I was going to ask about. We do travel. Sometimes there's great adventures and sometimes there's misadventures. In that particular case was sort of a bit of a misadventure, and that wasn't really your fault. It was whoever booked you in that wrong car. Um, Being there in one, language barriers is always an issue. And I know when I'm traveling, I try my hardest to speak at least a few words of the language, whether it be French or Spanish. I'm not good at it. I will admit that because when I had the opportunity to learn those languages, spent 3 or 4 years trying to learn French, never successful. And then when I went into what we call high school here, I decided because I heard that my family history had gone back to Spain, we'll trace it back to Spain. I wanted to learn Spanish. Well, I'll be honest with you, I spent more time dazed and confused when I was trying to learn Spanish, and I wasn't successful. And what happened is our Spanish teacher never had a student fail that class. So even in the final exam, she came in to sort of hint at things, not really give me the answers, but hint. And still, unfortunately, I failed. And as an adult now, and I travel more, I sort of regret the fact I really didn't focus on languages, and I should have, whether it be German, Spanish, French, whatever, just because I am a traveler. And it's always respectful when you're in another country to try to speak a little bit of their language, and they appreciate it. I found that even just speaking a few words of Spanish or a few words of French, even the French I learned is a little different than they speak in France because we learn what's called the Quebec French in Canada, which is sort of like a bit of a slang, and that we don't really understand the Parisian French, but we get we got through it anyways when they're traveling. Like some people speak English and French, so they were able to help translate. And the same thing when we were traveling in a country where Spanish was a spoken language, we were with people that knew a little bit of both, so they could translate for us. But that's on me. When I'm traveling, I should know better. Can you tell us about one of your best adventures? We were talking about misadventure just a minute ago, but what are one of your best adventures in traveling?
One of my best adventures in traveling. I was when you sent me the questions, I was thinking about this very, very hard. And like, what was it? What was it? There's so many. Like sometimes the misadventures lead into good adventures. If I can give you two really funny ones. Um, so the first one is I went for my birthday, usually when there's no pandemic. I like going to new places. I feels to me like the closest I can be to be a baby and be in a new environment. So I traveled to a place that I have never been before. I started close to home. I started this in Germany when I was 23 on my 23rd birthday. I started close to home. I went to a workshop on data visualization in Antwerp with a French guy who I had never met before, but he wanted to go originally with his brother, but his brother had to cancel and he was looking for a designer. A friend told me, hey, my friend Damian, he wants to go to this workshop. I told him, you're the designer. Do you want to go? And I thought, it's paid for. So cool. And I actually never told him it was my birthday until we got there. When we got there, I was like, hey, do you want to go have a beer? It's kind of my birthday. And it was a really fun thing. He eventually, I got to experience Antwerp on my own as well because he had to leave a day early. And yeah, it was a great experience. The year after that, I went a little bit further away. I went to a part of Germany I had never been before. Then I kept going away a little bit further out. And eventually I made it to doing a little bit of a road trip from Barcelona in Spain to Valencia to Madrid when I met up with my cousin and a few friends. And when I was in Valencia, I took this day tour because I love taking tours. I love taking walking tours. I think it's a great way to get to know the city, to meet new people. If you're traveling alone, meeting new people is really fun. And I met this girl who was also living in Germany, but she was originally from Korea, I think. No, her family's from Korea, but she's Canadian. Yeah, everything comes together somehow. And it was really funny because after the tour guide says like, hey, I'm going to go for a few drinks. If the tour wants to join me, that's great. And we drank this thing called aguas de Valencia, so water of Valencia, which is a very, very strong cocktail that hits you like a pile of bricks. You're like, this is fine. This is fine. This is so delicious. But then you want to get up and you're like, oh my God, I made a horrible mistake. Um, Fun night of partying. Everything is great. I wake up the next day to a message from my friend saying, I don't have my camera and I don't have my passport and I don't have my wallet. Few things that are necessary when you're traveling. So that misadventure of having like partying at night, getting drunk and everything led to huge monetary loss potentially. So it became a fun day of extremely hangover, retracing our steps and trying to find the camera and trying to find everything. We eventually got to a bar where we were before. We managed to get in touch with the owner. The owner said, yes, your things are at my bar. I found them last night. I live an hour away from Valencia, but don't worry, I'll get on my car right now and I will meet you at the bar. So there we are, basking in the sun. I am sweating alcohol. It's one of the worst days of my life. But the owner is the friendliest, most amazing person in the world. I dream of going back to Valencia and going and sitting in his bar and talking to him again because he's amazing. He gave my friend her camera, her wallet, everything. And she says, let me give you a reward. I just want to give you a reward for saving my life. And he says, don't worry about it. I just would like you to settle the bill from last night. Because apparently we left the bar also without paying. So congrats to us. We are terrible. We were. It was. Oh God. It was not my finest moment. But yeah, we paid the bill. We gave him a very nice tip, and then my friend and I we had a very nice breakfast. We walked around Valencia, and then we went our separate ways. So misadventure turned into a lifelong memory. I would say it's one adventure. The other one, I would say, when a couple years ago, my grandmother from Ecuador came to visit us in Europe because she has I live in the Netherlands with my parents live here as well. My older sister is in Germany. One of my aunts is in Paris with her son. My other cousin is in Belgium. So she has family in Europe. So every few years we like bringing her and she can do a little bit of country hopping. We travel with her. And she had always wanted to see this church in Portugal. And I said, okay, grandma, I'll take you. I'll take you to Portugal. So we got on the flight. We did a couple of cities. We did a couple of tours. And I always kept thinking if she falls or if something happens, I will be for the rest of my life the granddaughter who dropped grandma. I see my family every time they're passing me a glass or anything. Careful, she dropped grandma. Careful, she dropped grandma the one time. And so that was my constant fear. And on one of our final nights, my grandma, we're in Portugal, so she wants to go listen to fado, which is this very beautiful, very melancholic music that's made specifically in Portugal. And we find this really nice bar. It's very beautiful. And yeah, they have this great menu that has like little snacks and 4 glasses of wine. And I keep thinking, how am I going to drink 3 glasses of wine? I cannot do it. But I ordered anyways because she wanted it. And the next thing I know, my grandma has 3 glasses of wine and I have one. She was very excited about that bar. And I am 170, my grandma is 150. So I don't understand how she managed to perfectly, very elegantly, and very poisely get herself to the bus that got us to the house where we were staying and everything. And something that I love and I hold very dear is that she remembers that trip very fondly, like a thing that we have that is just the two of us together. And she told my mom when she got back, when she called to say thank you for everything and so on, she said that she's very proud that she knows that you could drop me in the middle of the jungle and I will figure out a way out. Because that's what travel teaches you. When you travel and you are put in uncomfortable situations that take you out of your comfort zone, you learn how to figure it out and to think on your feet, think what resources you have to be responsible for yourself. It's so many things, and you can learn it just taking your first bus trip or just venturing on your own to go to a store you have never been to or to a part of town you have never been to. It's that experience of thinking, okay, here I am in this moment that I have just have me, or I just have my friend, or I just have these things right now on me. What am I gonna do now?
Those are amazing stories. And the fact that, as you said, you share that specifically with your grandma, it's a memory of just you two. I don't know what it's like in your where you are, but I know here in North America, it seems that most of the men I know always complain about their in-laws. Always complain about their in-laws. I was blessed. I have really great in-laws, and we love to travel together. We've traveled to England. We've traveled to well, what we did one year is they had bought a trailer you could pull behind a large vehicle, and we decided to go to the east coast of Canada. And I spent normally what they were doing before that is they would go to Florida for a month of March, and they'd be there for like 4 weeks. We would fly down. We'd spend 2 weeks with them. So all we had to do was pay for our flight. We had a place to stay. We help out with the food and the cleaning of the place, and we take them out for a couple of dinners. So we have lots and lots of experiences with them. But when I talk to my male friends about that, they're like, "Are you crazy? You spend time with your in-laws? Were you drunk?" No, I was not drunk. But I'm fortunate that, and I have those memories. I have those memories with them. The fact that as they're getting older, they're both in their 80s now, and those are things I can hold dear and near to me because I lost my parents when they were young, so I didn't have that opportunity to travel with them. So having these people who not only are they my in-laws, but they're good friends. So we like spending time together, and we try at least almost every weekend to get together. We play euchre together, so we have a little tournament going on, and partners switch up. It depends on who partners that night, but we do a point system, and it's fun. It's just something to do when we get together. We'll have a nice dinner. We'll talk about things, but we sit down and play either one or two games of euchre. I didn't really start traveling until I was probably, I would say, around 35. And I did some local travel, domestic travel, if you want to call it, in the province here of Ontario. But it was at age 35 that I decided I had some money because I was saving up for a car. I was going to get my license. I went, did a driving test, failed twice. A little disappointed. What am I going to do? I got all this money and I don't have a car. I don't have my license. So I decided to get on a plane and fly to Florida. Where I was going to stay in Florida, I did not know. I did not even check to see where I'd be staying. It's like, I'll get there and I'll figure it out. And sometimes that's the best thing to do. I travel alone. I didn't know anybody. But while there, I met a couple from England who had been away from, I think they'd been away for about 6 weeks by the time I met them, but they travel all over the US from one coast to the other coast and all the parts in between. And that was really enjoyable that we had a good 3 or 4 days together before they left. And unfortunately, they didn't stay in touch. I tried. Some of the mail I sent to them was returned. I don't know if they moved or whatever happened, but they were good people. So it's you're not going to meet people when you're traveling unless you talk to them. And like you said, in this particular case, you one of those adventures is when you lost your friend lost the phone, the passport, and the wallet. I didn't lose my passport. I had my passport stolen in Paris. I was going from the subway into the train station, going to the turnstiles, and that was an experience. But we did get through that. I've traveled a lot, and I've lost my cell phone. And the last time I lost my cell phone was quite interesting, or second last time, I should say. I was in Antigua Barbuda, and it'd been a long day. We were out touring different resorts and stuff. It was a long day, hot day. Sat down, and of course, I had a little nap. Well, then our driver came, and he's like, "Get on the bus right away." So I had my phone sitting down. It's a black case sitting on a black table, and in front of me was my bag and a big bottle of water. So I grabbed my bag and my bottle of water, ran, got on the bus. We're all halfway back to the resort, going, "Oh my God, where's my phone?" So didn't panic. A lot of people would, and a lot of people were surprised I didn't. But when I got back to the hotel or resort, I said to them, I said, "Look, I'm pretty sure I left my phone at the resort. This is roughly where I left it." So they called and asked people to check. Nobody could find it. So the group I was with, they were all freaking out, going, "Why aren't you panicking?" I go, "It's a phone. I have my life. I have my passport. I have my health. Everything else is good. If I get my phone, okay. If not, it's my fault because it's not the first time I've lost my phone. It's like maybe fourth or fifth time. There was two more times after that. But anyways, what happened is one of the staff had found a phone and they turned it into the front counter, but there was a new person working there and they put it in different spots. So they did find it. And they called and said, "Okay, we have it at the hotel." I said, "Okay, well, I'll come and get it." And so I asked how much it would cost for a taxi from my resort to the resort. It would be $100 US. It's okay, I'll do it. They go, "No, no, 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 don't worry about it. We'll look after it. We'll make sure you get it," which they did. And one of the driver that actually drove us that day, he was off the next day, but he actually drove to the resort, picked up my phone, brought it back to our resort, and I tried to tip him. He would not take any money. He says, I want to do this because you are such a nice person. And from what I hear from the people here at this resort, you're calm, cool, collected about it." Like even that night that I lost the phone, we had gone to dinner with a group of ladies. And when you're in the travel business, most of the people are women. So you get maybe it's like 80% women, 20% men. and we're sitting around having dinner, and I'm all calm and everything. But everything's on your phone. I said, well, one thing about it is my photos go up to the cloud. As long as I'm connected to internet or Wi-Fi, it goes to the cloud. So my photos are there. I'm not worried about that. I could always get a new phone. I know they're expensive and that, but it was my fault. Nobody else's fault. So I'm just going to chill and relax. I can't do anything about it. As you said there, you guys retraced your steps. And then at the end of it, the funny thing was, all he wanted was you guys to settle the bill. So that was interesting.
Yeah, he like I love your story, Randall. It's the perfect example of if you're nice to people, nice things will happen to you.
We call that karma.
We call that karma. Yes.
Now, I have a question for you because like I said, I've traveled a lot, and I'm one of these ones that even though I study the destination, I know what the weather is supposed to be like. I always pack way too much. I pack for beach, and I pack for being stranded in the mountains, freezing cold. So I've taken way too much with me. Do you pack too much when you're traveling, or do you pack just enough?
I am on the side of people who pack very light. I am a light packer. I try to live a sustainable lifestyle. So for example, I don't use shampoo in a bottle. I use a shampoo bar. I don't use toothpaste that comes from a tube. I have powdered toothpaste. Before I had taps, now I've switched to powder just to try a new brand. So I always bring those type of things. I am not a person that wears too much makeup, so I am on the personal care side. I am pretty light, anyways. But on the clothing side, I like to be prepared. I like to take two sweaters, three t-shirts, a pair of shorts, two pairs of pants. And I have these thing called packing cubes in which I have everything separated. So things that I need very often, like let's say t-shirts, I keep them on one cube. Things that I need, pants or pajama, towels, and so on, I keep them on another cube. So I have them divided so it's easy to access. And then I have a bag for laundry. I am not opposed to sitting in the laundromat for an hour listening to a podcast while I do laundry. I am not opposed to that. But I like to travel light, and also as a Latin American woman, I worry about my safety. So I like to keep my things very close to me. So Quechua backpack, one of the ones that you can buy at Decathlon. I take that, a big one and a small one for my personal belongings. And yeah, I'm on a set of a light packer. And I don't mind repeating outfits. I'm traveling, nobody knows me. I, I have friends that say, "Oh, but you have to carry like different things for the pictures." I'm not taking pictures of myself the entire time. And if I'm traveling, I don't think anybody will judge the fact that I repeated a blouse. But I do try to be prepared. I I will say this. So I don't like buying like very expensive clothing. I mostly go to secondhand shops and stuff like that. But if I were to go to the mountains, for example, I would invest in a good pair of boots. Like I am not going to put my physical integrity ahead of my pocket. I will say I will buy the boots if that will keep me safe. I will buy the water resistant pants if that will help me if I go, I don't know, waterboarding for some reason. No, that's not waterboard. That's a method of torture. White water rafting. White water rafting. I will go through that. But aside from that, I try to be very diverse on the things that I wear and think, okay, if I wear something twice, I am happy with it, but I am more on the lighter packing side.
One thing I must say, and I have I have a daughter. She's 41, and they travel very lightly. It's usually just a backpack, and I'm quite amazed because they could be away for a week or more. But the just a backpack, so they can just get on the plane, put their backpack in the overhead bin. When they land, grab the backpack, walk right off, and they can go straight, basically straight through. Less worrying about. And I'm surprised because I don't know how she does it. I overpack. It's like I'll come home from even if domestically I'll pack and I'll say I'll need this, I'll need this, I'll pack the stuff. Domestically, it's a little different because we have our vehicle where we're traveling, so you can pack it up as full as you want. But I usually come back and I go, why did I pack all this stuff? Because I only use like half of it. it's like I'm thinking that there's no return, so I got to make sure I have everything with me.
You never know.
You
Like
never know.
I have an aunt that is like that. I remember it was my parents, like right before we moved to from Mexico to Germany. My parents traveled to Germany first. To they first traveled to Iran and then to Germany. So because there was two options, either moving to Iran or moving to Germany because of the company my father was working, thinking of accepting a job offer from. And he was already set. He thought, I have three daughters. I think it will be best if we live in Germany. And the two older, like my older sister and me, we already spoke German, so it was the clear option. But still, they thought, new place. Let's see a new place. And my older sister was living in Monterrey in the northern Mexico. We were living in the state of Veracruz, and I was staying with my younger sister because I have a younger sister she was 6 back then. She's 17 now, and they decided that it would be a great idea for one of my aunts to come up from Ecuador to take care of us. And I say, take care of us. I took care of us. And then her daughter came down from Canada to also stay with us because like Mexico's right in the middle. And when it was time to go pick my parents up from the airport, we had to drive about 3 hours to get to Mexico City. And we figured, okay, we're going to go a couple of days before and we can get to know the city, go to the Aztec ruins, go to a couple of museums, like have a good time all together. And I packed a backpack because I thought I'm in the same country as I live. I've been to the city before. I know what the weather is, so I don't need much. And I see my aunt coming out of the house with a suitcase, like not like a carrying case, like a suitcase. And I ask her, "What are you having there?" It's like, "Oh, a little bit of everything." Just like a few extra outfits in case something happens, a formal dress in case we go out to dinner. And I thought, where are we going out to dinner? What is happening here? Why do you have this? My parents wanted to kill me because when we picked them up and they opened the trunk of the car was stockpiled with stuff that was not from their trip. They wanted to murder me. And I basically just had to travel in the back of the car because there was no space in because of all the things I had to travel with the luggage, which actually made for a very nice bed. So I had a comfortable ride back. But yeah, so I always think about that when I think of maybe I should carry a formal dress because I don't know. Thinking I don't know, there are clothing stores there. I think I can find a secondhand shop anywhere that I go in case it's necessary.
As I'm not sure how travel restrictions are where you are. No, in Canada, the government has flagged, like top level places we're not allowed to go visit. Right now, the Canadians cannot drive into the United States. Even if they are vaccinated, the border's still closed for us going into the States, which I have no inkling of going into the States right now. However, I am looking forward to future travel. And do you have any places that you're looking forward to that maybe you can't travel to right now, but you would like to as things, hopefully, we get through this? I call it the elephant in the room, the pandemic. Is there any places that you have that you would like to go visit once we get through this hurdle?
That's a good question. There are always places that I want to go visit, like places that I've had on my list for a very long time. I would like to go to India. I would like to do my yoga teacher training, like go there for a month and get to see the country and do my yoga teacher training there. I feel very drawn to Cambodia for some reason. I would like to go to Kenya with one of my friends who is from Kenya. I think Latin America, Africa, and Asia are types of places that you should visit with a local because they're areas that can be full of conflict, but they can also be very beautiful if you have somebody who can show them to you. So I'm looking forward to that. I also would love to go to Honduras. As not last time I was there, I think I was maybe 13 or 14. So I would love to go there as an adult and see where my family comes from, where that entire side of my family comes from, and get to know my culture better. And then about the restrictions. It really, I feel like I'm very lucky because the pandemic has been an inconvenience to me. It has not been a tragedy. It has been an inconvenience. I am very lucky to live where I live. I'm lucky that the Dutch government did a great job with the restrictions, with the vaccination campaigns and everything. I was able to travel recently. I went to Mexico for 3 weeks to see my father because my father lives there, and he was able to come visit us. And so in that way, I'm very lucky. And places that I'm looking forward to going as well would be the US, but because my boyfriend's family comes from there. So my boyfriend is American. So I look forward to going there and seeing where he came from and all those things. So I I, I don't know how you feel about revenge travel. I don't like the concept of revenge traveling. Feels like people are thinking when the restrictions are lower, I have to make up for all the traveling that I didn't do, and to take like show corona. And I keep thinking it's a virus. It doesn't care. It doesn't have a it. It's not a being that cares if you travel or not. Um, but I do have that inkling. I feel like I want to spend the time with my family. I want to travel to Paris if I can to see my aunt because I haven't seen her in a very long time. And yeah, go to Honduras and go to all those places that I want to see because again, I'm very blessed. It has been an inconvenience, but I look forward to when it's not there anymore.
I like what you said there, is especially with the pandemic. Fortunate for me, we've been able to work from home, and so I have my work computer off to one side here on this long desk of mine, and my podcasting stuff here. So even though, like I said earlier, Greater Toronto
Sounds
area,
like you have sounds like you have my dream setup. A long desk with podcasting stuff on one side and work stuff on the other side. I just wanted to say that that's my dream setup, and I am extremely jealous right now.
well, the desk itself is about 96 inches long, and I have at the end of that, I have a two-drawer filing cabinet where my printer's sitting on, just to give me more desk space. And um, yeah, it's just, my microphone's on a boom. I can move it out of the way, so when I'm done work, I can move this computer back. Right now, it's pretty close to me, but I can move the computer back and give me more desk space. When I'm doing my work for the employer, I do a lot of writing because I'm researching. A lot of people go and type it out. Not me. I like to write it out, and the reason for that is because I find that we're losing our ability to write. And when you ask young people to write something, the first thing they're going to do is grab their iPad or their phone or whatever and type it. Excellent, excellent. I see you're showing me a journal there. So it's 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 almost becoming a lost art. So I like to write things down. As we get close to the end of this podcast, and the one question I have, which I can only answer one way because I've only done land travel. I haven't done sea travel yet, but it's something that's on my bucket list to do some cruising. But I'm going to ask you, I don't know if you've ever been on a cruise, but what do you prefer, land or sea? Land or sea cruising or vacationing?
Easy. I will not get on a boat. I am terrified of taking a cruise. I watch Armageddon way too. No, it wasn't Armageddon. I watch a movie about a cruise that gets like there's a wave. I've seen Titanic way too many times. You can tell me that it's safe. Part of me will always be in doubt. I do not trust. I have this I need to be able to get off. I need to be able to step outside to say like, okay, I'm bored. I am leaving now. And like, I am perfectly fine in a tin can in the sky for 15 hours. I am perfectly fine with that. But the idea of being on a cruise and for a week, for 4 days, terrifies me. I have panic about it. Nothing against the sea. I love the sea. I will always treasure the memory of one time I went to Ecuador and I needed to go see the hunchback whales because they mate and have their babies in the coast of Ecuador. So we went there and we got on the boat and it was amazing seeing them. I've gone scuba diving in Egypt with my family. I love the ocean. I just like the option of not being in the middle of it for a very long time. Life of Pi, another movie that I think about when I think about the ocean. Yeah, easy land. There's no doubt in my body about it.
And again, as I said just before I asked you that question, I can't really comment on that. I've done my family, my grandfather on my mom's side is from the east coast of Canada. It was a fisherman. The family's always been into fishing. So we do lakes and stuff here in Canada. I've done, um, I would say, a short cruise from Florida over to the Bahamas. That was overnight. Really didn't see anything because we were sleeping when we were traveling. We woke up and we were in the Bahamas. But as you said, to be out and about in an ocean, because the ocean can be unforgiving and we have no control. You know, we put all our trust in the vessel, and we also put our trust in the crew. So I do want to do it, but there's part of me to say, "Are you crazy? You know, stay on the land. It's safer to land." I I don't know. It's something I normally don't ask guests when they come on. We're talking about passports and postcards. I just find that it was interesting, especially your reaction sort of surprised me. He's like, "No way, just keep me on the land." So I do appreciate you coming on here today. And before we wrap this up, I'm going to give this opportunity here for you to sort of let our listeners know what you're currently doing or what you might be, what the future might hold for Alex.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Um, I think two things. Like on my professional life, I'm working on aside from getting my BA, like I just started my final year. I'm very excited about it. I'm also working on a couple projects. I'm developing an emotional agility tool with a friend of mine to help kids that who, because of circumstances in life, have struggles with communication or with understanding emotions, to give them an option to express themselves without using words and understand their emotions. So that's one thing. I'm also working on a project related to water. It's called Water Everywhere, and thinking about how water is not only a body of water that can swallow you if you're in a cruise, but also a an intelligent body that carries information. So that's fun. And I'm also working with the city on Rotterdam. I do a lot of things working with the city of Rotterdam as well. That's why I need this. Like the book that I showed, this traveler's journal, it actually has, I'm like you. I love writing. I love putting ink on paper. I have my books that I like reading a lot. I have post-it notes in them and I make little notes. And I have a paper planner. I don't use the I used to use my phone. I tried my phone for a year. It didn't work. I need to put things on paper. I need to give the check mark. And yeah, working on that. And then I also have my own podcast called, in which you are a guest. Your episode is coming out on September 30th. And I'm very excited about it and us catching up on a little Instagram live. And yeah, the podcast is called Do I Need School to Be? And I ask people in the creative field, like Randall, like Josh Savage, who's a musician, like Emma Fanning, who's a designer, people in the creative field, about how they got there. Because we all learn in different ways and we're all different, especially creatives. And sometimes you're going to take the formal education route. I did. And other people are self-taught. Other people face challenges because they are neurodivergent or they have amazing teachers. They didn't have so great teachers. And I made the podcast because I want to give a resource in which people can say, if my journey doesn't look the way that I think it should, it's fine, because we all have our own path. So that's what I'm working on.
Wow, you you surprised me because you do a lot, and I think maybe that's why we sort of connect a bit because, as I said earlier, and most of my listeners know that I do have that day job. I do the podcast. I don't do just one podcast. I have four going right now, four going. And I find it very interesting in the diverse people that I get to speak with. But again, finding a social app such as Clubhouse and getting to meet people, especially in a time when we could not get together, like especially in North America, it seemed almost shut down. When I first got on the app, which was in January of 2021, but I met so many wonderful people like yourself. And because we are podcasters, we resonate around a podcast community. But because I'm also a believer in travel, I also resonate around people that are involved either in travel or love travel. So I have those two groups within the clubhouse. And over the course, January to now, I find that in the podcast community, someone like yourself, Alex, who has been there helping us grow, helping us learn, so many wonderful people there. And if it wasn't for that app, I don't think you and I would have met. So I think there's a reason for everything. And I'm glad we did meet. As was said earlier, I was on your podcast. Now you're on this one. We're talking about travel. We love travel. Travel never stops. It might slow down, or we might have a roadblock, as I say right now that and the reason why I won't travel right now, and I talk about the Canadian and American border being closed. Well, Canadians can actually get on a plane and fly into the States. That's not a problem, but we cannot drive into the States. I just don't understand the philosophy there. Not that I want to go there right now, but in the future, I do want to return to the United States. But there's so much of Europe that I want to see that I've never, like, I've been to England, Ireland, and France. In Paris, as I said earlier, my passport was stolen. I was wearing a fanny pack. Never, ever, ever again will I wear a fanny pack. Those, if I see one, I scream really loud, say, don't wear it. Because again, when you're moving and if the crowd comes in, people are bumping and jostling with you. You don't know what's going on. I was going through a turnstile where I had to put my ticket in and try to get luggage up over the turnstile because my wife's luggage was almost taller than I am, and it wouldn't go underneath the turnstile, so I had to lift it up and over. We looked
Yeah,
behind us. Go ahead.
the turning
Yes,
doors in Paris to get into the metro, they're very special, aren't they?
they are very special. I don't
And
understand them at all.
so fun when you put the ticket too close to your phone, it actually demagnetizes and you waste the entire money that the ticket was worth. So fun. I have my own horror stories. So I know you the pain. I know the
Yeah.
pain very well.
Well, I do want to thank you for being on the show today, and I know that it's late where you are, early evening, I guess. It's around what time is it there?
It's 7:10.
Seven
And
ten.
I totally agree with you. I have to say that Clubhouse, it's one of my favorite, it's my favorite social media app. I have to say it's my favorite. I think it, because of its nature, because it's live conversations that it will never repeat again. You you have to be authentic. It's your authentic self. If you try to be fake, somebody will call you out. It has its flaws, like every single social media app. Everything has a flaw.
Yeah.
But the community of podcasters that I have found there, like people like you, have really encouraged me. I will never forget that one of the first few times that I went on stage, it was before I started my podcast. My journey to podcasting took a long time. Like I had the idea for the podcast a year and a half before I even started it. And I was very nervous. And then I started an internship and they asked me to do a podcast. And then I was forced to do it. And I remember I said on the stage that I was worried about how my voice would sound. I was worried about if anyone would listen. And you sent me a DM on Instagram saying to do it, saying to not be afraid of it, that I had found a community, that I had found a friend in you, and that anything I needed, you would be there to support me. And that meant the world to me. That's why I'm so happy that we spoke on my podcast, that we're speaking here, that we're friends. It it meant a lot. And the fact that we can talk through, because of the miracle of the internet, it's noon for you and it's evening for me, but still we're connected. So yeah, it's such great. What a time to be alive, even with a pandemic. What a time to be alive.
Well, I think too, without the pandemic, this may not have happened. Uh, the We need to be connected, and that we are humans, and that's in our DNA. And I know at the strongest time of lockdown for us, even not being able, as I said earlier about my in-laws, not being able to get to see them now. They only live maybe a half an hour drive from us. But when there's a lockdown, and we hadn't had the vaccine yet. One, I did not want to go see them in case I was infected and infect them because they're elderly. But now that we've got our vaccines, and even though they're not 100% that will cover us, at least it's. I say it's better to be vaccinated for myself. I do it not just for me, but I do it for my community, so that if I have to be out and about, which in cases I do have to be out and about, at least I know I've done that. I've got my shots, and I'm waiting. And they're talking about a booster shot. So if their booster shot comes along, I'll take it. I just want to make sure that not necessarily for me, but for the community, the people that I'm around, and make sure that I'm not the one that's making them sick. But I want to travel more. I just really want to travel more. I want to, you know, I made the mistake when I was younger of, as I said earlier, trying to climb that corporate ladder rather than spending the time traveling when I was, fit. I had extra money back then. Now I have a home, I have mortgage, car payments, everything. I don't really have a lot of money. I have the time. I just don't have a lot of money. So if there's anybody out there listening to this that wants to throw some money my way so I can travel more, I'm looking forward to it. Alex, I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been working on it for a while, but here you are, and we're going to get this uploaded soon. So really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you so much, Randall, for having me. And yeah, keep up your amazing work. I think you're doing great things. And yeah, bringing the spirit of traveling to people, even if they can, even if they cannot, even if they cannot. And yeah, I mean, whenever you're ready to come to Europe, let me know and I will give you all my recommendations. I have a bunch of them and they're a beautiful place to see here. I think coming from the American continent, sometimes we forget that the world existed way before Christopher Columbus found America. And found in quote marks, like he thought he found India, but that's not here nor there. Like for example, when last time I was in Spain, we went to south of Spain with my family, and we went to the town that not many people do actually that I can recommend. There's a town called Puerto Palos in almost in the border with Portugal and Spain, and that's where Columbus actually left to try to find the new route to India. And they actually have these real size ships that you can stand on and think this is how big the boat was. And I was standing there and I thought, I get why they had four mutinies. I understand. If I was sitting on this boat following some crazy Italian who thinks we're not going to fall off the edge of it, who thinks that there's land there, I will go crazy because, like I said before, I don't like cruises. But I digress. Thank you so much for having me on the pod, Randall.
Thank you for coming on.